Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Stephanie Mehta. I am the CEO and Chief Content Officer of a company called Mansueto Ventures. We publish Fast Company and Inc. magazines. And my marching orders today are to be provocative. So buckle your seatbelts. We've been hearing so much in the first session about the wonder of AI and all of the wonderful things that people can do with AI. We're going to hear a little bit more about the productivity gains from AI. I want to start by asking the provocative question, which is, what is the biggest mistake that leaders are making when it comes to AI right now? Ash, let's start with you. One sentence, speed round.
Obsessing over what's the right model to choose, and not enough about making the knowledge and the data that an AI model can actually use.
Wrong.
I think the biggest mistake is that you only talk, you don't do. I coding over the weekends. I do 10,000 lines of code. That's the only way you know about AI.
Lamise?
I think swinging from either side of the pendulum and kind of being too far on either side. So either being incredibly fearful about AI and so not using it at all, or applying it absolutely everywhere and not really thinking about the outcomes.
Yeah. So we want to dig into all of the mistakes that leaders are making and how we can avoid being the leaders who make those mistakes. Let me start by asking Ash to talk about how leaders can prepare for AI-driven change. From an infrastructure perspective, what foundational decisions should leaders be making today that are going to set them up for the next 3 to 5 years?
I think the winners in this market are very, very clearly not the ones that are picking the best engine. The best engine isn't the problem. It's the data supply chain required to support any engine that you will run your AI with. That's the key part. And under that are really three things we looked at. One is dealing with the plumbing tax. So all of us within organizations have a tremendous amount of data, tremendous amount of information. Even the way an organization operates. Being able to fix that first without having to spend too much time digging ditches, laying the pipelines, and really focusing on the design part. Second is baking in security right in the foundation as opposed to the frost, which seems to be a problem every time new technology comes along. And third one is really trying to get information and knowledge available to these AI models in the context, securely, at scale. Each of those three things have become super, super important. And I think you'll keep hearing me talk about data and knowledge because that fundamentally powers an AI model. Without that, you pretty much have nothing.
And what do leaders underestimate about data readiness? As you said, data is the foundation. What are the things that leaders that you've talked to fail to understand or don't quite grasp?
We call it the plumbing tax. They just assume I just bring in a model and I do a little demo. First project works great, and then you find out the next one doesn't, and the one after that doesn't. So half the projects we saw fail. One, the plumbing tax. Two, not planning right from the beginning on what does this project look like when it scales. It looks great on the first one, like all of us when you use our first ChatGPT. And then when you really go back and build a business around it, you find a lot of things start to break. And it's because you really didn't have a very great plumbing business to start with.
Rong, as you think about AI reshaping context and communications, how should leaders rethink workflows in order to maximize AI?
This is a very good question. And for sure, it's very hard to predict right now because things have been changing so quickly. But I would say two things. First things I think is that the talent growth process will become significantly different. So nowadays, if you think about a 10x engineers, they are going to produce not only 10x outcome, they will probably produce 100x than what it used to be. So, and this is no longer tied to year of experience anymore. Our traditional sort of a talent evaluation process no longer apply. So, And any of the exponential talent you're going to see, they are going to be able to leverage agents and some things that was not at their disposal before to significantly increase their productivity. So that's why the talent evaluation process will be very different going forward.
Say a little bit more about that. Are there traits that you see among these now 100x engineers that are different from the 10x engineers? What are the things that you are interviewing for or testing for to know that someone has the ability to essentially, as you said, manage agents and take advantage of the new technology as it's evolving on a daily basis?
Exactly. Yeah, so I definitely happy to go deeper on this one. So I also changing my interview process these days. So because if I'm thinking about the futures, the kind of talents we are looking for here is no longer just a specialist. So if you imagine a world that agent can really help you to to execute, to do code, to design, to do management, that kind of things. So in fact, what you actually need is horizontal skill set. So you are controlling the ideation process, you are controlling the judgment process. You need a taste. So if you think about that process, then the line between engineers, product managers, and design, they are start become fuzzier. So in fact, there's this new term I really like, it's called builder. People start to need more builders, and the builders require horizontal skill set. And so that's why when I start to evaluate, people start to evaluate more horizontal skill set for the persons, not special skill set. And those people are the 10x people I'm looking for.
That's really interesting. Thanks, Rong. We talked a little bit about the skill set of the engineers. Let's talk a little bit about the traits of leaders. What mindset shifts separate leaders who adapt to AI from those who resist? What are you seeing in the marketplace?
I actually think what both Ash and Ron have said contribute to the mindset piece, the data readiness, kind of that hard skills approach, and then looking at the workflows. You really have to almost do due diligence on your own business and assess kind of what parts of the process are working and which ones aren't. And having the last 10 years applying AI into businesses, I can tell you the ones that have thrived versus the ones that haven't. And the split is that the ones that have thrived have carried both their employees and, more importantly, their customers through that change curve. So the Kubler-Ross framework of that change curve, they really understand how to carry people from denial to adoption and really take you on that journey. So there's that concept of slowing down to speed up. We're moving at such a fast pace, but actually it's not going to hurt you if you just slow down and be a bit reflective about where we are to really propel yourself forward as a leader to carry your organization through.
Spend a little bit more time talking about that relationship between the leader and the employee. How do you build trust as you're bringing those employees along? What are some of the things that you've seen those successful organizations do when it comes to gaining the trust? And I imagine transparency is also part of this conversation when it comes to working with your teams.
You actually just nailed it. So I fundamentally believe that trust is actually the real currency we trade. It's not money. When you think about it, when you sign a contract with somebody or you hire somebody, you're trading in trust, really. That's what it is. But trust can be built. And so if you're a leader in your business and you're thinking about how do I build trust internally, think about it as a trust triangle. So the trust triangle is authenticity, empathy, and logic. And authenticity in this context is, do I experience you? Do I experience the real you? And so if I'm talking about how we're applying AI to our business, where we're at, what we're doing, what we're not doing, people can handle uncertainty. They can't handle the spin. So as long as you're being kind of open and transparent about it, you'll carry and start to build that trust with your employees. The second thing is empathy. So how are you responding to me? Are you self-aware enough to not only handle yourself, but how I'm feeling, and do I feel that from you? And the third is logic. So the logic is how reliable are your words? How reliable are your actions? And so I would share your due diligence with your organizations. I would share the homework. Let them feel like they're being taken on that journey with you. So when we're thinking about how to build trust, and I've heard it so many times today, I think it's such an important piece. Let's build it within our organizations to carry them on this journey.
Rong, when we did the speed round, Lamise mentioned that one of the things that leaders get wrong is sort of vacillating from experimentation and placing lots of little bets, and then on the other hand, like burying their heads in the sand. What do you see as the ways that leaders should balance experimentation with governance or guardrails? What's working in the marketplace right now?
So I think, like, to be honest, we don't know exactly what's the right boundaries right now. So, but I would say what HeyGens is embracing right now is velocity first. So that's very important because if you look at the AI space at this moment, no one have technical mode at this moment. I would say that even for OpenAI or Anthropic or Google, they don't have technical mode. So the only things you can really play is velocity. So that's why experimentations is very important. So it's very critical for us to find out what are the right choice. But on the other hand, I would say governance, you need to apply the fundamental principle behind that. And also that's one thing that we truly believe is like about trust and safety, observability, and making sure everyone is understand like what, if we are using an agentic system, if we are using an experimentation system, you need to know what's happening behind the scenes. There's already an anti-pattern we are finding right now is that, okay, I'm from engineering world. My engineer just like blindly believe what the agent will spit out for them and commit the code, and how I call rubber stamping. That's very dangerous. So in fact, in the new world, this pattern is getting more dangerous because like a lot of people, you can generate thousands of lines of code very easily. So it actually makes governance much more difficult. So I won't say I have a perfect solutions right now, but I want to enforce a culture. If people believe execution becomes simple, judgment becoming more important. So they need to be very more careful to look into the output of the agents and put more scrutiny around it.
Ash, given what Lamise and Rong have said about trust and governance, do you have a point of view on whether companies should protect their assets by centralizing AI work, or is it better to proliferate AI throughout the organization so you can get that experimentation and you can see what works? Is there one model that's better than the other?
So I'll talk about scale, and I'll probably summarize in 6 words. Centralize the foundation and distribute the innovation.
And so what does that look like in practice? Can you give an example?
I think, like I said before, people obsess over, let me try this model, let me try that model. And that might be true in businesses where that is the only competitive weapon. In most businesses, you have something fundamentally different than the outcome. The more important part is, does a person in your organization, and I'll talk about my own organization, we have a billing person in finance who writes her own agent to run a billing system that was very different than what she's been doing for the last 30 years. Because she understands her craft. She's written a hyper-personalized way to do billing, just like my marketing person does, just like we use Canva for various other purposes. There are people who know their craft. And if I can allow them to hyper-personalize what they're good at, as opposed to having them build the plumbing, having them connect all these pieces together, that's not a value. That's not something that I would carry forward as a competitive advantage. So I think we've done it across the board. Every function at Pinecone, and I'm talking about everyone, finance, HR. I'm an HR person who was actually doing the comp planning for 2026 today. She has a Claude Code license and she pulls together agents for her work that she writes, hyper-personalized for her job. So ultimately, I think what you talked about is, Dr. Rong talked about is the right thing. Do you have the judgment? Are you the artisan of your craft? And if you're not, and you're just a glue, good luck.
I think that is an interesting definition for what productivity in the AI era looks like. I'd love the other panelists to weigh in. Rong, what does productivity look like, or what does that word really mean? We hear a lot of conversations about, one of the earlier panelists or speakers talked about 3 hours a week saved. Is it really about time saving, or is it about something different?
That's a very good question. I'll probably have a different answer. It's like 3 months later now than like 3 months ago. So yeah, because like 3 months later, I'm still in the IDE or cursor world that like people are still like going to IDE to write codes. But now I can see like things can automatically writing code by itself. I don't even need to go to IDE for 2 weeks already. So give another anecdotal example, like 2 weeks ago, our company was running a hackathon. Over 2 days, we are a small team. We have like about 100 employees and like 70 engineers. 50 engineers participate in the hackathon. We come up with 40 projects over 2 days. So, and then it's like the kind of a productivity you're talking about is much, much faster than what it used to be. So, and if you look at previously, 1 year ago, it will probably take 2 months to build those 40 projects. And now it can take 2 days to get the same things done. So I would say in this way, the productivity is no longer execution or coding itself. It's actually more become the decision-making process. Because at the end, we won't be able to launch all 40 projects to our customers. The customer will feel confused. Then probably going back to what we discussed before, it's about how do you make judgment in that case? Which one should go out? Which one should not go out? And which one are the most important for your customer? And which one should not? And in fact, that adds another equation on top of it, is that maybe in the futures, it's not a human using your products. It's an agent using your products. Then what agent actually wants, which I don't know. So, but we are all maybe going to test it out, throw it out to the wall and see which one stick. But the only thing I would say is that now it's a world that we need to think out of the box. It's very different from last year's.
Everything is moving so fast. Lamise, what does productivity look like in your mind in the age of AI?
I probably come from a slightly different school of thought. You know, I think trying cool things and new things is absolutely brilliant, and experimentation is really important. But actually, let me ask you guys a question. Have any of you read Reid Hoffman's book, Super Agency? Amazing. I mean, if you haven't, I'll be responsible for the 500 copies that he gets today. But essentially what he talks about is the human plus AI and what that equals, which is your super agency. And that's really the school of thought that I come from, because I fundamentally believe that AI has the ability to amplify you and give you those superpowers rather than, and I think Cameron said it earlier, than replace you. So productivity is really how you want to do your job better, how you want to transform your career in the next coming months, few years. And actually just on that, I know there's so much doom and gloom around layoffs that are happening and organizations are changing, and that isn't going to change. But what really excites me is that I actually think we're going to move away from a generation of renters back to owners again. It is the cheapest it has ever been to build a business. And this is an opportunity for any builder out there that's thinking about, there is a problem, can I solve it? And so there is really a spin on what's happening in the world right now, what's happening to organizations. I'm really excited to see the next generation of organizations over the next kind of 12 to 18 months. It's going to come from these amazing technologies.
Yeah.
Yes, Roger.
I'd like to get rid of the word productivity.
You and me both. I agree.
Seriously, I think it's from an industrial revolution.
What
We're
would
measuring
you-
human beings
What
like
word would
machines.
you use?
I would focus on time to insight. What's the time to insight? Do I have the right knowledge available to you, the right person, at the right time to make the right decision? This productivity stuff is like measuring time. Like, this machine was going faster. Now you need to go faster. I think that's done.
Insight. We have time for one more speed round question. So I started by asking you what leaders get wrong. I'd love to hear, when leaders get it right, what are they doing correctly when it comes to deploying AI in their organization? One sentence. Lamise, I'm going to start with you.
I would be asking my employees, I'd be asking every single person what is going really well right now and what is not going really well right now, and use that as your baseline to explore how AI can fix problems.
Wrong.
I would say, yeah, when you practice it and when you feel like you are 10xing your efforts, then you will feel about right.
Ash, final word.
I think what they get right is making sure information and knowledge is available without losing control. So data is a great mode, knowledge is a great mode, but if I don't have my AI swim that mode, it's pretty useless.
This is a great panel. We talked about transparency, we talked about human judgment, we talked about craft, and we talked about getting rid of the word productivity. Thank you so much, Lamise, Rong, and
you.
Ash.
Thank you.
You all.